The storm inside you. Imagine standing on the edge of a quiet lake at sunrise. The water is still. The world hasn't yet woken. In that stillness there's power, a peace that feels untouchable. Now imagine someone throws a rock into that water. The stillness breaks. Waves ripple outward. The reflection disappears. That's what happens when we react without control. Every time someone says something that hurts us, every time life throws a problem our way, it's like another rock hitting our emotional surface, and before we know it, our inner peace is gone. But what if you could remain still? What if you could be that calm lake again, unshaken, reflective, powerful? That's what this audiobook is about. This is not just about controlling anger or stress. It's about mastering the art of not reacting, of choosing peace when chaos calls your name, of walking through storms with a calm mind and a strong heart. Because when you stop reacting to every trigger, every opinion, every little disturbance, you don't become weak, you become invincible. So take a deep breath. Let's begin this journey to reclaim your inner strength, to silence the noise, and to rediscover the power that lives in your stillness. Chapter 1. The world wants your reaction. Have you ever felt like life keeps testing you, as if the universe is constantly pushing the exact buttons you're trying to protect? One careless comment ruins your day. One piece of bad news shifts your whole mood. One misunderstanding becomes a storm in your mind that you can't silence. It's almost as if the world is watching to see, will you react? We live in a time when everyone wants your reaction. The louder, the faster, the better. The world rewards outrage more than reflection. We scroll, we comment, we defend, we argue, and somewhere in that chaos, we lose our peace. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every time you react, you hand your power away. Think about it. Every angry reply, every emotional outburst, every moment you couldn't hold back, it didn't solve anything. It just drained you. It made you smaller, not stronger. It pulled you into someone else's storm instead of anchoring you in your own calm. Now imagine this, a still lake at dawn. The surface is perfectly smooth. The world around it is quiet. Then a single stone is thrown in, and ripples stretch outward. That's what reaction does to your inner peace. One small disturbance, and suddenly the reflection disappears. But the lake doesn't fight back. It doesn't chase the stone. It simply allows the ripples to fade, and returns to stillness. That's what emotional control is, not resistance, not coldness, but a quiet return to peace. When you master that, you stop being manipulated by every situation. You stop being pulled into battles that don't matter. You begin to live from a place of calm strength, instead of emotional chaos. The world wants your reaction, because your reaction gives it control. When you argue, defend, explain, justify, you are reacting. You are giving your energy to something that doesn't deserve it. But when you choose silence, when you take a breath and hold your ground, the world loses its grip on you. That silence isn't weakness, it's dominance. Quiet, graceful dominance. You see, silence isn't empty, it's full of clarity. It gives you space to think, to observe, to understand what's really happening before emotion clouds your judgment. Reactivity is what the world trains you for. Reflection is what frees you from it. Have you noticed how easily people provoke each other? One wrong word online, one disagreement, and it explodes into conflict. We've become addicted to reaction. We mistake noise for strength. But true power is silent. It's invisible. It doesn't shout to be heard. It simply is. The strongest person in any room isn't the one who speaks the loudest. It's the one who could say everything, but chooses not to. There is a kind of quiet confidence that can only be found in restraint. It's the moment you feel anger rise inside you, and instead of feeding it, you breathe. It's when someone tries to insult you, and instead of proving them wrong, you smile and walk away, because you've realized their words can't touch your peace. That's emotional mastery. and it begins with awareness. You cannot control what happens around you, but you can always control what happens within you. The world may tempt you to react, to prove your worth, to defend your pride, to show your strength. But real strength doesn't need to be proven. It's quiet, calm, and consistent. It moves like water, adapting without losing form. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a colleague disrespects you, when a loved one says something hurtful, the moment between action and reaction is your greatest test. In that moment, you decide who you are, a prisoner of emotion or a master of peace. That space between stimulus and response, that tiny pause, is where your freedom lives. The problem is, most people never find that space. They live on autopilot. Someone says something, they snap. Something goes wrong, they explode. It's not because they're bad people, it's because they never learned to pause. But once you start pausing, once you learn to breathe instead of break, everything changes. You start seeing situations for what they are, not what your emotions want them to be. You start realizing that other people's words only have power if you hand it to them. There's a kind of peace that can't be disturbed, not by insults, not by chaos, not even by loss. It's the peace of knowing that nothing outside of you can control what's inside of you. That's what we're building here, not detachment from life, but mastery of self. When you stop reacting, you begin to see clearly. You notice the patterns that used to rule you. You start catching yourself before your emotions take over. You start choosing calm over chaos, wisdom over impulse, and in that choice, you grow. You start walking through life differently. People notice it, that stillness, that calm presence. They can't quite understand it, but they can feel it. You're no longer reacting to the world. The world is now reacting to you. Because the person who doesn't react, who stays grounded, centered and unshaken, that person becomes magnetic, powerful, peaceful, free. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about mastering it. It's not about never feeling anger or sadness or fear. It's about not being ruled by them. When you learn not to react, you stop feeding every fire that tries to consume you. You stop explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand. You stop wasting energy on moments that don't deserve your spirit. And suddenly, you have space. Mental space, emotional space, spiritual space, to grow, to think, to create. Because when you're no longer reacting, you're finally living with intention. You become deliberate in your actions. You choose your words carefully. You observe more and speak less. You start to experience life with depth instead of speed. You begin to understand something profound. That peace isn't something you stumble upon when life is easy. Peace is something you build, moment by moment, by choosing not to react when everything in you wants to. That's how you rise above the noise, not by shouting louder, but by standing taller in silence. The world will still try to test you. People will still provoke you. Life will still throw challenges your way. But from now on, you'll begin to see those moments different. You'll see them not as attacks, but as invitations. Invitations to practice self-control, to strengthen your calm, to stay grounded no matter what comes. Because the world only has power over you if you give it your reaction. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you breathe and let stillness return, you reclaim your power. You step out of the storm and realize you were the sky all along, and that is where the journey begins. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into the roots of your triggers, the hidden patterns that make you react, and how to understand what your emotions are really trying to tell you. Because before you can control your emotions, you must first learn to see them clearly. And that's where our true mastery begins. Chapter 2. Understanding your triggers. There are moments in life that seem to hit us harder than they should. A tone of voice that feels disrespectful, a look that feels dismissive, a situation that others might shrug off, but for you, it burns. You feel it in your chest, that rising heat, the tightening in your throat. And before you can even explain why, something inside you reacts. That moment, that flash is a trigger. And here's the truth. You cannot master your emotions until you understand your triggers. Your triggers are not random. They are messages. They're like tiny alarms that go off when something touches an unhealed part of you. The problem is, most people spend their whole lives trying to silence the alarm instead of asking why it's ringing. Every time you overreact, every time your peace is easily stolen, there's something deeper asking to be seen. Maybe it's not the person who made you angry. Maybe it's the memory they stirred. Maybe it's the way your father's tone used to sound when he criticized you. Maybe it's the way you felt invisible growing up. Maybe it's the old feeling of rejection that you never learned to heal. The trigger isn't about them, it's about you. And when you understand that, everything changes. You begin to see that emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings, it's about understanding them. You can't heal what you refuse to face, and you can't control what you don't understand. So let's go deeper. Think of your emotions like waves on the surface of the ocean. Triggers are like the wind that stirs them. But underneath, far below the surface, lies something still, something constant. That stillness is your true self. The problem is, most of us never dive deep enough to find it. We live reacting to the surface, never exploring the depths. To understand your triggers, you must become an observer, not a judge. When something bothers you, don't rush to defend yourself. Don't rush to silence the feeling. Just pause and ask, why did this affect me so much? That question is where healing begins. You'll start to notice patterns. Maybe you always react when someone questions your ability. Maybe you feel anger when someone doesn't listen. Maybe you shut down when someone raises their voice. These are not coincidences, they are clues. Every trigger points to a wound that once went unacknowledged. A moment when you didn't feel safe, respected, or enough. And when something in the present mirrors that feeling, your mind and body respond as if it's happening all over again. But you're not that helpless child anymore. You're not that version of yourself who didn't have control. You have the power now, the power to notice, to reflect, and to choose differently. Let me share a story. There was a man who always lost his temper when someone disagreed with him. He'd raise his voice, get defensive, and later feel ashamed of his outburst. One day he decided to stop blaming others for provoking him and started looking inward. He realized that growing up, his opinions were constantly dismissed. He was made to feel that his words didn't matter. So as an adult, every disagreement felt like that same rejection. His anger wasn't about the argument, it was about being unheard as a child. Once he saw that, everything changed. The next time someone challenged him, he paused. He felt that familiar surge of anger, but instead of reacting, he breathed. He reminded himself, this is not the path. I am safe. I am heard. I can stay calm. That awareness didn't just change his reactions, it changed his life. Because when you understand your triggers, they stop controlling you. You begin to see emotions not as enemies, but as guides. Each one has a message. Anger says, something feels unfair. Sadness says, something was lost. Fear says, something feels unsafe. They're not here to destroy you, they're here to teach you. But when you react blindly, you miss the lesson. You see, most people try to fight their emotion. They suppress anger. They distract themselves from sadness. They numb fear. But emotions are like waves. What you resist only grows stronger. What you face begins to calm. Emotional mastery begins when you start listening to your emotions instead of running from them. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What part of me still needs healing? When you look at emotions this way, they stop being threats. They become teachers, and through that understanding, your reactions begin to change naturally. You no longer explode when someone criticizes you, because you've healed the part that once needed approval. You no longer crumble when things go wrong, because you've built trust within yourself. You no longer chase validation, because you've learned to give yourself peace. That's what understanding your triggers does. It gives you power over yourself, and once you have that power, no one else can take it from you. There's something freeing about knowing that peace doesn't depend on people behaving a certain way. It depends on you seeing clearly, understanding why you feel what you feel, and choosing not to let it rule you. So the next time you feel that spark, that heat in your chest, that rise of emotion, don't fight it. Just pause, breathe, ask yourself quietly, what is this showing me? Because the moment you become curious instead of reactive, you begin to transform. Awareness is the first step toward emotional control. It's the doorway to peace, and that doorway is always open. You just have to step through it. The world will still test you. People will still say things that sting. Situations will still arise that challenge your patience. But once you understand your triggers, those moments lose their power. They no longer shake you the way they used to, because now you see the truth. The trigger was never the problem. The unhealed emotion behind it was. You can't always control who throws the stone, but you can always choose how still the water remains. And with that awareness comes something incredible: compassion. When you understand your own triggers, you start to understand others too. You realize that people who lash out are not always angry. They're often hurting. Those who criticize are often insecure. Those who attack are often afraid. Understanding yourself helps you understand humanity. It softens you. It makes you wise. That's the real gift of self-awareness. Not just control, but compassion. Because the more you see into yourself, the less you judge others, the less reactive you become, the more peaceful you feel. And that is how emotional maturity is born. Understanding your triggers isn't just self-help, it's self-liberation. It's the key that unlocks the prison of emotional reaction. Once you see the pattern, you can break it. Once you hear the message, you can heal it. Once you understand the wound, it can finally stop bleeding. That is the power of awareness, and now you're beginning to build it. In the next chapter, we'll explore the power of silence, the hidden strength that comes from saying nothing when the world expects you to react. You'll discover how silence isn't emptiness, but energy, the purest expression of inner control. Because once you understand your triggers, silence becomes your greatest weapon. Chapter 3: Silence, Your Secret Strength. There's a strange kind of power in silence. It's not loud, it's not flashy, and yet, when you truly feel it, it can move mountains within you. Think about the most peaceful moments of your life. They weren't filled with noise or chaos. They were quiet, a sunrise, the sound of your own breath after a long cry, the moment before you fall asleep, when the world finally stops spinning. Silence has always been the space where truth reveals itself. But in today's world, silence feels almost impossible. We live surrounded by noise, notifications, opinions, arguments, constant pressure to respond, to post, to explain ourselves. We've been taught that silence means weakness, that if we don't defend ourselves, we lose. But that's the lie that keeps us trapped in reactivity. The truth is the opposite. Silence is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's confidence without display. It's knowing who you are so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. When you choose silence, you take your power back. Most people don't realize this. Reacting is easy. Anyone can yell. Anyone can argue. Anyone can match chaos with chaos. But remaining calm, choosing not to feed the fire, that requires discipline, wisdom, and inner power. Silence is the art of restraint. It's the invisible armor that protects your peace. When you understand this, you stop wasting energy on every situation that tries to pull you in. You stop reacting to people who don't deserve your emotional investment. You begin to live from a higher place, a place of observation instead of participation. There's a moment in every argument when you realize you could keep talking, you could keep fighting, but it wouldn't change anything. That's the moment silence becomes your greatest ally. Because silence doesn't mean you agree. It means you've risen above. Let me tell you a story. A woman once worked in a busy office where gossip was constant. Every day, someone had something negative to say about someone else. She used to get caught in it, defending herself, explaining, trying to be understood. It always left her drained. One day, she decided to try something new. When people started talking, she said nothing. She just smiled politely and returned to her work. At first, it confused them. Then it bothered them. But over time, they stopped trying to pull her in. Because silence has a way of making noise lose interest. She didn't have to fight the chaos. She simply refused to feed it. And that's what silence does. It starves negativity. It leaves drama with no audience. You see, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's the presence of self-control. It's a conscious choice to value your peace more than your pride. That's where true power lives. When you stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds, when you stop defending your character to those committed to misunderstanding you, you free yourself. You realize you don't need to participate in every storm, because not every comment deserves a response. Not every insult requires a defense. Not every misunderstanding is worth your energy. Silence says, I am not afraid of being misunderstood. It says, I trust myself enough to stay still. It's the language of self-mastery. Now that doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you guide them. You learn the difference between speaking from pain and speaking from clarity. Silence gives you space to hear your own wisdom before the world drowns it out. When something triggers you, when your chest tightens and your thoughts race, silence becomes a sanctuary. Take that moment to breathe. Step back. Observe the emotion but don't obey it. That small pause, that choice not to react is what separates peace from chaos. Because the truth is, silence isn't empty. It's full of answers. It's the space where your emotions settle and your clarity rises. It's where you begin to hear your intuition again. That quiet voice that always knows what's right, but can only be heard in stillness. You'll notice this in your daily life. The next time someone tries to provoke you, maybe a coworker, a friend, or even a stranger, watch what happens when you say nothing. Watch how their power fades. Watch how your calm unsettles them. Silence disarms those who seek control. It confuses manipulation. It protects your energy like an invisible shield. And here's the beauty of it. Silence doesn't just protect your peace in conflict. It also deepens your relationship with yourself. In silence, you rediscover your thoughts. You reconnect with your purpose. You start to realize that you don't need as much noise as you thought. There's a calm that comes from knowing you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to fix every misunderstanding. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. That calm becomes your anchor in every storm. When you master silence, you become unshakable. People's opinions stop controlling you. Their judgments stop piercing you. Because now you live from within. You no longer seek peace from the world. You carry it inside you. But understand this, silence is not avoidance. It's not pretending nothing bothers you. It's strength with intention. It's the conscious decision to respond only when your words will build, not destroy. And sometimes that means saying nothing at all. When you practice this kind of silence, your energy begins to shift. You'll notice that you speak less, but say more. You'll notice that your presence alone starts to calm rooms, to change dynamics, to bring peace where there was conflict. Because silence is magnetic, it draws respect, even from those who don't understand it. The world will always try to pull you into noise, into urgency, argument and chaos. But you get to decide how much access the world has to your peace. And the moment you realize that silence is not the absence of power, but the expression of it, You begin to live differently. You become patient. You become grounded. You become untouchable. People will still talk. Situations will still test you. But your reaction, or rather your lack of one, will speak louder than any words ever could. Because silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you're saving your voice for something that truly matters. And when you finally do speak, your words will carry weight, because they'll come from stillness, not from impulse. So practice silence, not as escape, but as mastery. Practice holding your peace, even when everything around you is begging for your reaction, because that's how you grow stronger, not by fighting the noise, but by outlasting it. Silence will teach you patience. It will reveal what truly deserves your attention. It will make your energy more valuable, your presence more powerful, and your emotions more disciplined. And in that quiet, something miraculous happens. You start to hear yourself again. The noise fades. The world slows. And for the first time you feel free. Free from the need to respond. Free from the need to be understood. Free from the emotional chaos that once ruled your life. That's the power of silence. It's not just the absence of words. It's the return of self. In the next chapter, we'll explore what happens when the ego tries to take that power away. How it disguises itself as pride, as defense, as the need to be right. And how learning to silence the ego may be the most powerful act of emotional control you'll ever master. Because once you've found strength in silence, your next challenge is learning not to let your ego break it. Chapter 4. The Ego Trap. There's a quiet voice inside you that always wants to be right. It whispers in moments of conflict, it burns when you're misunderstood, and it screams when someone dares to question your worth. That voice, that restless, fragile, defensive voice, is your ego. It's not your enemy, but it will become one if you let it lead. The ego is a master of disguise. It wears the mask of pride, the armor of confidence, the costume of strength. It tells you that staying silent means losing, that forgiving means weakness, that humility means defeat. But the truth is, the ego doesn't care about peace. It cares about power. It doesn't care about healing. It cares about being seen. And that's why it keeps you trapped in reaction. Imagine this. Someone criticizes you unfairly. The words hit like sparks against your skin. Your heart quickens. Your jaw tightens. Your mind begins to form the perfect comeback. That's the ego, desperate to protect its image, desperate to prove it's right. But here's the irony. In trying to prove its power, the ego gives it away. Because the moment you react to defend your pride, you've let someone else control your peace. The ego can't stand being ignored. It wants to fight, to explain, to dominate. But the person who truly knows their worth has nothing to prove. The ego doesn't like silence, because silence reveals who's really in control, your higher self or your pride. Every reaction, every argument, every defensive thought is a test. Are you ruled by your ego or guided by your wisdom? You see, the ego isn't evil, it's just scared. It was built to protect you. When you were hurt, rejected, or overlooked, your ego stepped in and said, "Never again." It created walls of pride, perfectionism, control and anger, not to harm you but to shield you. But those walls that once protected you now imprison you. Because when your ego runs your life, you spend your energy defending an image instead of living your truth. You react to keep that image alive, the image of being right, being strong, being superior. But deep down, that image has nothing to do with peace. It's noise wearing confidence as a costume. Real confidence doesn't argue. It doesn't compare. It doesn't seek validation. Real confidence is quiet. It's the voice inside that says, "I know who I am. I don't need to prove it." The ego wants to win, But the wise want to understand. Think about that the next time someone tries to pull you into conflict. Ask yourself, am I responding to the situation, or am I defending my pride? Because there's a difference between self-respect and ego. Self-respect says, I will not allow you to disrespect me. Ego says, I will destroy you for trying. Self-respect is calm. Ego is reactive. And every time you choose calm over conflict, you weaken the ego's grip on you. Let me share something with you. There was a man who always had to have the last word, whether it was a debate, a disagreement, or a simple discussion. He couldn't rest until he proved he was right. One day, someone told him, you know, your need to be right is costing you peace. At first he laughed it off. That's what egos do. But over time, he started noticing how much energy he wasted defending things that didn't matter. How many relationships he damaged because he couldn't walk away. Eventually he realized that the lace he'd been searching for was waiting on the other side of letting go of being right, letting go of being perfect, letting go of being seen as more than he was. That's what humbling the ego feels like. It's not losing. It's finding freedom. Because when the ego falls silent, your soul finally speaks. You begin to see how much of your suffering came from pride, from needing control, from chasing validation, from confusing other people's opinions with your self-worth. And then something powerful happens. You stop reacting to every little thing. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself against lies, because you trust that truth reveals itself in time. You no longer chase approval, because you've found contentment with it. You no longer argue to prove your value, because you've remembered it was never up for debate. The ego survives on reaction. It dies in stillness. That's why silence, as we learned in the last chapter, threatens it so deeply. Silence exposes what the ego fears most: irrelevance. Forces it to surrender control. But when you let the ego dissolve, even for a moment, you begin to experience something extraordinary: peace without condition. You start living in a quieter rhythm. You stop needing to be right and start wanting to be at peace. You stop fighting to be understood and start listening to understand. You stop reacting and start observing. You realize that no one can truly offend you unless you let your ego interpret their words as an attack. If someone insults you, your ego takes it personally, but your higher self knows it's just noise, a reflection of their pain, not your worth. The less reactive you become, the more powerful you are, because you're no longer controlled by the fragile, defensive side of yourself. The ego says, defend yourself. Wisdom says, observe yourself. And in that observation, you find mastery. Here's the truth. The strongest people are not those who win every argument. They're the ones who no longer feel the need to. It takes strength to speak, but it takes even greater strength to stay silent when your ego demands otherwise, to sit in stillness, to let others misunderstand you, to know that your peace matters more than your pride. That's power. Humbling your ego doesn't mean you let others walk over it. It means you stop letting your reactions control you. It means you rise above petty conflicts because you value your energy too much to waste it. And once you taste that kind of peace, you'll never want to go back. You'll start to notice the world differently. Arguments will feel smaller, opinions will matter less, and the need to prove anything will fade. You'll realize that people who constantly defend themselves are often at war with their own insecurities. And you'll choose not to join that war. Because peace doesn't need an audience. So let your ego rest. Let it lose a few battles. Let it be misunderstood. Because every time your ego quiets down, your soul grows louder. And that's the voice that will lead you where true freedom lives. In the next chapter, we'll explore the space between emotion and reaction. The pause that changes everything. You'll learn how to master that sacred moment, how to catch your feelings before they control you, and how to turn impulsive reaction into conscious choice. Because once you understand your ego, the next step is learning how to pause, how to use stillness as your greatest weapon in a world that thrives on speed. Chapter 5. The Power of the Pause. There's a moment, a tiny, invisible space that exists between what happens to you and how you respond. It's the quiet before the storm, the breath before the words, the heartbeat before the decision. Most people never see it. They live their lives reacting to everything, every insult, every challenge, every inconvenience, as if the world controls their emotions. But the truth is, that moment, that sacred pause, is where your power lives. It's the difference between chaos and control, between regret and wisdom, between reacting impulsively and responding with clarity. Every argument you've ever had, every mistake you've ever made in anger, every word you've ever wished you could take back, they all happened because you skipped the pause. The pause is small, but it changes everything. Imagine someone says something that offends you. Instantly, you feel the spark. Your chest tightens, your pulse rises, your mind starts forming the perfect defense. That's your instinct, your emotional reflex. But what if, instead of reacting, you just paused? You don't speak. You don't type that message. You don't feed the fire. You just breathe. In that breath, you take back control from your emotions. You tell your mind, I am not a slave to this moment. And suddenly, the power that was about to explode outward turns inward, transforming from reaction into understanding. That is emotional mastery. It's not about suppressing your feelings, it's about steering them. Because emotions are powerful energy. If you react, that energy controls you. But if you pause, you control it. Think about how many times in your life you've said something you didn't mean just because you were hurt. How many times you've sent a message too quickly, made a decision too fast, or let your frustration speak louder than your wisdom. The pause protects you from that. It's a shield, not a weakness. It's the invisible strength of the emotionally mature. People often confuse silence with defeat, but silence isn't losing, it's choosing. It's choosing peace over pettiness. It's choosing understanding over reaction. It's choosing not to give away your power every time something shakes you. The pause is where you decide what kind of person you want to be. It's in that stillness that you see clearly. Is this worth my energy? Will reacting change anything? Am I acting from pain or from peace? And once you start living from that awareness, everything begins to change. Your relationships become calmer. Your conversations deepen. Your presence becomes grounded. People start feeling your strength, not in your words, but in your restraint. Because anyone can shout, anyone can argue, but not everyone can stay still and see through the noise. Let's be honest, reacting feels good in the moment. The rush of anger, the satisfaction of the last word, the sting of revenge. It gives a false sense of control, but that control fades quickly, and what's left is the emotional hangover, the regret, the guilt, the realization that peace slipped through your fingers again. That's why the pause is so powerful. It saves you from the temporary satisfaction of reacting and gives you the lasting reward of inner calm. Here's the truth. Most people live as prisoners of their impulses. They react before they reflect. They speak before they think. They move before they understand. But when you learn to pause, you step outside of that prison. You start responding consciously instead of unconsciously. You stop being pulled by every emotional wave and instead learn to surf them. The pause is not just silence. It's awareness. It's the ability to observe your emotions without becoming them. To say, I feel angry, instead of I am angry. That tiny shift changes everything. Because when you observe your feelings, you separate who you are from what you feel. The emotion becomes temporary, manageable, something you can guide, not something that controls you. When you master the pause, you stop being a victim of external events. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You pause. Someone spreads a rumor about you. You pause. Someone disappoints you. You pause. And in that pause, you reclaim your peace. You don't need to match other people's energy. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to fight every battle that tries to find you. Because now you understand something deeper. Not every reaction deserves your energy. Not every emotion deserves your voice. Not every moment deserves a response. Sometimes silence is the strongest statement you can make. It says, I am in control of me. That's real power. Not loud, not reactive, but deeply centered. The kind of power that doesn't seek attention because it already knows its value. Now let's take this deeper. The pause is not just for moments of conflict. It's for life itself. Before you make a big decision, pause. Before you say yes to something that doesn't feel right, pause. Before you let fear stop you from trying, pause. That moment of stillness gives your intuition time to speak. And your intuition, that quiet inner knowing, is always trying to guide you toward peace. Not chaos, but it can only be heard in silence. The pause opens that space for wisdom to step in. In that stillness, you might realize that the argument you were about to have isn't worth it. That the opportunity you were about to chase doesn't align with your value. That the fear you were about to obey isn't real. The pause saves you, again and again, from unnecessary pain. It's the secret of emotional intelligence, the art of self-mastery, the hidden strength behind every calm and powerful person you've ever admired. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. At first it'll feel uncomfortable. Your ego will resist. Your emotions will demand expression. But with practice, you'll learn that reacting doesn't make you strong. Awareness does. With every pause you train your mind to serve your peace, instead of your pride. You become unshakable, not because life stops testing you, but because you stop reacting to every test. So the next time you feel your emotions rising, stop. Take a slow breath. Feel the weight of the moment without moving, and remind yourself, I choose peace. I choose control. I choose to pause. That's where transformation begins, not in the reaction, but in the restraint. Because mastery doesn't come from fighting your emotions. It comes from understanding them. In the next chapter, we'll explore that understanding even deeper. We'll talk about how to feel without being overwhelmed, how to let emotions flow through you without letting them define you, and how to transform that energy into growth. Because after learning to pause, the next step is learning to feel, consciously, courageously, and without fear. Chapter 6. Feel without falling. There's a quiet strength in allowing yourself to feel. Most people think control means being untouched, unaffected, and emotionally numb. But real control isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling deeply without losing yourself in the emotion. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, the rain falls hard, and the thunder roars above you. Most people try to fight it. They resist, they run, they hide. But what if you just stood still, knowing that no storm lasts forever? That's what emotional strength looks like. It's not denial, it's calm endurance. You see, emotions are not your enemy, they're messengers. They arrive with meaning, telling you where healing is needed, where boundaries are broken, where love or truth is being ignored. But most of us were never taught to listen. We were taught to suppress. Don't cry. Don't be angry. Don't feel too much. And so we learned to build walls around our hearts, believing that protection meant peace. But what it really gave us was distance. From ourselves, from others, and from life itself. The truth is, you can't silence emotion without silencing your soul. When you deny pain, you deny growth. When you numb sadness, you numb joy. When you refuse to feel, you stop living fully. Emotional mastery isn't about pushing feelings away. It's about creating enough space within you to hold them without drowning. Let's be honest. Emotions can be overwhelming. Anger burns, sadness aches, fear paralyzes, love even hurts sometimes. But none of these feelings are wrong. They're part of the human experience. The problem isn't emotion, it's attachment. You feel anger, but you don't have to become anger. You feel sadness, but you don't have to live in sadness. You feel fear, but you don't have to bow to fear. When you learn to sit with your feelings without judging them, you gain power over them, because awareness is freedom. The moment you say, "I am aware that I feel hurt," you separate yourself from the hurt. You become the observer, not the victim. Think of emotions like waves. You can't stop them, but you can learn to surf them. Each one rises, peaks, and falls. If you fight it, you'll drown, but if you ride it, you'll find rhythm, the natural movement of your inner world. This is what it means to feel without falling. There's a story of a woman who lost everything: her job, her home, her relationship. For weeks, she couldn't get out of bed. Every time she tried to move on, the pain pulled her back down. One morning, she decided to stop resisting. She sat in silence and said, "I'm just going to let myself feel this, all of it." She cried until there were no tears left, and in that release, something changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it softened. It became something she could hold, not something that held her. That was the day she began healing, not when she stopped feeling, but when she allowed herself to truly feel. That's the secret. Pain becomes unbearable only when you refuse to face it. But when you look directly at it, when you breathe through it, it starts to lose its control. You are meant to experience emotion, not to be controlled by it. Your heart was not designed to be a cage. It's a vessel, meant to feel, process, and release. So the next time you feel sadness, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it. Ask it what it's trying to teach you. Maybe it's showing you that you've been giving too much and receiving too little. Maybe it's telling you that something needs to change. The same with anger. Instead of exploding, explore it. Anger often hides truth. It may be pointing you toward injustice, unmet needs, or unspoken boundaries. It's not there to destroy you. It's there to wake you up. And fear, that old companion of the human mind, it's not always your enemy. Sometimes it's just your intuition whispering, "Be alert, be ready, be aware." Fear reminds you that you care about what's at stake. The key is not to silence it, but to walk with it, until courage takes the lead. To feel is to be alive. To feel and stay centered, that's mastery. When you can let emotions pass through you without clinging to them, you discover an incredible peace, the peace of non-resistance. You stop fighting reality. You stop expecting yourself to be unshakable. You start allowing yourself to be human, and that's where real power begins. Because strength is not the absence of emotion. Strength is the ability to stay steady in its presence. Here's a truth most people never realize. Emotions lose their intensity when they're fully felt. Suppressed emotions grow louder, but expressed emotions quiet down. They complete their cycle and fade. So give yourself permission to feel deeply, honestly, completely. Not for the sake of drama, but for the sake of clarity. When you feel fully, you understand yourself more clearly. You begin to recognize your patterns, what triggers you, what soothes you, what heals you. You stop running from yourself and start meeting yourself. And that's where peace lives, in self-understanding. You start noticing that emotions are just visitors. They come to deliver messages, and when you've listened, they leave. You don't have to shut the door on them. You just have to know when to let them go. Remember, emotion is energy in motion. It's not meant to stay stuck inside you. It's meant to move, to flow through breath, through words, through stillness, through release. So cry if you must. Breathe through the discomfort. Write what hurts. Speak your truth, but never, ever apologize for feeling. That's your humanness. the very thing that connects you to life. The moment you stop fearing your emotions, they stop controlling you. They become guides, not guards, teachers, not tormentors. And with time, you'll find that your emotions no longer drown you. They deepen you. You'll love more gently, forgive more easily, speak more thoughtfully. Because once you've walked through the fire of your own feelings, you no longer fear anyone else's. You begin to radiate calm, not because life stopped being hard, but because you stopped fighting what's real. So the next time emotion rises, pause, breathe, and let it pass through you like a wave. Don't run. Don't resist. Just feel. And remember, feeling is not weakness. It's wisdom in motion. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to protect this emotional peace, how to keep your energy centered when the world around you tries to pull you into its chaos. Because it's one thing to master your emotions, but it's another to maintain that mastery when life starts testing it. That's where true emotional power begins. Chapter 7. Protecting your peace. There comes a time in every person's life when you realize peace is not something you find, it's something you protect. It's not given to you. It's created and guarded by every choice you make, every boundary you set, and every reaction you refuse to give. Peace isn't fragile, but it is sacred, and once you learn how to protect it, you begin living from a different frequency, a quiet, unshakable strength that no chaos can penetrate. Let me ask you this: how many times have you felt drained, not because of what you did, but because of who or what you allowed into your space? How many times have you left conversations feeling smaller, heavier, or less clear than before? That's not just coincidence, that's energy. And protecting your peace means becoming the guardian of your energy. It starts with one powerful realization: not everything deserves access to you. You see, we often think emotional control is about mastering our reactions in the moment, but emotional protection goes deeper. It's about shaping the environment around you so that fewer things even need your reaction. Think of your peace like a garden. If you don't protect it, weeds will grow, noise will creep in, people will trample over it without even realizing its value. But when you build boundaries, firm, loving, consistent boundaries, you create a space where your mind can rest and your soul can breathe. Boundaries are not walls. Walls shut people out. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. Protecting your peace doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means being intentional with your access. You learn that not everyone who wants your attention deserves your energy, and not every invitation is an opportunity. It's okay to say no. It's okay to step back. It's okay to outgrow people, habits, and environments that no longer align with your peace. Because peace is expensive and chaos is cheap. The world will always try to sell you noise, endless opinions, constant comparison, emotional manipulation disguised as urgency. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your days reacting to everything, constantly tired, constantly distracted, constantly disconnected from yourself. Protecting your peace means saying not everything gets to enter my mind. It means filtering what you consume, not just food or media, but conversations, thoughts, and energies. Ask yourself, does this add to my peace or drain it? The more honest you are with that question, the freer you become. There will be people who misunderstand your silence, who think your calm is distance or your detachment is arrogance. But protecting your peace isn't about being liked, it's about being aligned. You're not here to explain your peace to those who thrive on conflict. You're here to maintain it for those who understand its power, and for yourself. And here's a truth most people don't realize: protecting your peace often means disappointing others. You will have to walk away from conversations that don't serve you. You will have to let people down who expect you to always say yes. You will have to choose yourself in moments when others want to use your energy for their own comfort. That's not selfish, that's survival. Because if you lose yourself trying to keep everyone else comfortable, what peace will be left for you? Protecting your peace requires courage, the courage to not engage in every argument, the courage to stay silent when provoked, the courage to leave when staying would cost you your soul. It's not about winning battles anymore, it's about keeping your energy intact. Sometimes that means responding with, "I understand," instead of defending your point. Sometimes it means letting someone believe they're right, because you've outgrown the need to prove your truth. Sometimes it means walking away from what once felt familiar, because your peace has outgrown the noise that used to feel like home. The art of protecting your peace is the art of surrender, surrendering your need to control how others see you, respond to you, or treat you. You focus instead on what you can control, your boundaries, your focus, your energy. It's about learning the quiet power of non-engagement. Not every situation needs your explanation. Not every insult needs your defense. Not every conflict deserves your presence. When you stop feeding the noise dies, and in that silence, your peace grows. You'll start to notice that your calm irritates people who live in chaos, that your silence makes the insecure uncomfortable, that your boundaries will trigger those who benefited from your lack of them. Let them be uncomfortable. You are not responsible for their reaction to your peace. You are only responsible for keeping your energy pure, your intentions clear, and your heart free from unnecessary burdens. Peace isn't about escaping life, it's about standing strong in the middle of it. Even when the world is loud, you can stay still inside. Even when people project their pain onto you, you can choose compassion without absorption. Even when everything around you feels uncertain, you can hold your center, because peace is not something outside of you, it's something you cultivate within. Protecting your peace means waking up each day and deciding, nothing and no one will disturb my inner state without my permission. It's not arrogance, it's awareness, because when you guard your peace, you guard your power. When your mind is calm, your decisions are clear. When your emotions are steady, your presence becomes magnetic. You become a mirror of stability in a world that constantly shakes, and that stability, that unshakable calm, becomes your greatest influence. Here's something to remember. Peace isn't loud, but it's noticed. People feel it. They may not understand why, but they sense it when they're around you. The quiet confidence, the emotional balance, the grounded presence, and that right there is leadership. The ability to stay composed while others lose control. The ability to remain compassionate without becoming consumed. The ability to walk away without hatred and stay soft without being weak. That's what it means to truly protect your peace. It's a lifelong practice, one that requires patience, self-awareness, and discipline. You'll slip sometimes, you'll overreact, you'll let people in who don't deserve the access. But that's okay. Peace isn't perfection, it's progress. Every time you choose calm over chaos, reflection over reaction, stillness over noise, you're strengthening your peace muscle. And one day, you'll look back and realize something powerful. The things that used to trigger you no longer have the same hold. The noise that once consumed you now feels distant. The people who once drained you no longer have the same access. That's when you know you've changed. Not because life got easier, but because you got quieter inside. Protecting your peace is not an act of defense. It's an act of love, self-love. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your purpose. You protect your focus. You protect the light within you that the world so desperately needs. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to build unshakable self-trust, the kind that keeps you steady, no matter who doubts you or what life brings. Because once you learn to protect your peace, the next step is learning to trust yourself enough to live fully within it. And that, my friend, is where real freedom begins. Chapter 8. Building Unbreakable Self-Trust. There is a moment in life when you realize that the most powerful relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. It's not the people who cheer for you, not the validation you receive, not the praise or approval of the world. It's that quiet, unshakable knowing inside that says, I can depend on me. That's self-trust. And once you build it, you become unstoppable. Because self-trust is not just belief, it's evidence. It's the record of every moment you showed up when it was hard, every promise you kept, every time you fell and got back up. Think about it. How many times have you broken promises to yourself? How many times have you said, I'll start tomorrow, I'll be better next week, I'll stop doing this soon, and did? Each broken promise leaves a small crack in your confidence. You begin to doubt your own word, even when no one else hears it. But here's the truth. Trust is built the same way it's broken, one small decision at a time. You don't rebuild self-trust overnight. You rebuild it by choosing consistency over comfort, by doing what you said you would do, even when no one's watching. When you begin to trust yourself, your world changes. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting for the right time. You stop asking for validation, because you realize your word is enough. Self-trust is the foundation of self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of peace. You can't feel truly at peace with yourself if deep down you don't believe in your own follow-through. So how do you rebuild that trust? You start small, painfully small. Make one promise to yourself today. Something realistic, something meaningful, and then keep it. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It could be as simple as waking up when you said you would, drinking that glass of water you keep forgetting, finishing the thing you keep delaying. Each small win sends a message to your subconscious. I can trust myself again, and that's how the foundation strengthens. Brick by brick, choice by choice. You begin to feel different, grounded, clear, calm. You stop negotiating with your goals and start aligning with them. Because when you trust yourself, doubt loses its grip. Here's something most people never realize. Self-trust and self-doubt cannot live in the same space. One grows as the other fades. Every time you show up for yourself, even in small ways, you silence the voice that says you can't. You prove to yourself that your future is safe in your own hands. And that's what real confidence is. Not arrogance, not external validation, but the quiet certainty that no matter what happens, you'll handle it. Trusting yourself doesn't mean you'll always make the right decision. It means you'll recover when you don't. It's knowing that mistakes aren't the end, they're feedback, lessons, data. When you trust yourself, you stop fearing failure. Because you understand something powerful. You've survived worse. Every setback you've ever faced, you came through it. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every time you thought it was over, you made it here. That's proof. That's strength. That's evidence. You've already earned the right to trust yourself. You just forgot to recognize it. Rebuilding self-trust also means letting go of the version of you that failed. You're not defined by your past inconsistencies. You're defined by your willingness to begin again. Every day, you get a new chance to rewrite your relationship with yourself. To say, I may have broken promises before, but today I keep them. Forgive yourself for the times you didn't follow through. You weren't lazy, you were unaligned. You didn't need more pressure, you needed more clarity. Self-trust isn't about perfection, it's about honesty. Can you be honest enough with yourself to admit what's not working without shame? Can you look at your patterns with compassion instead of judgment? because that's where healing begins. When you start treating yourself like someone you truly care about, you naturally become someone you can rely on. You see, self-trust is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's quiet, calm, and steady. It shows up in how you walk, how you speak, and how you make decisions. It's in the way you say, "I'll figure it out," and mean it. It's in the way you choose to act, even when fear whispers, "You can't." It's in the way you stop chasing external validation, because your own approval finally feels enough. And something magical happens when self-trust grows. You stop overthinking. You stop asking everyone else what they think you should do. You stop doubting every decision. You stop being paralyzed by what if, because you finally realize that your intuition, that quiet voice inside, is your greatest guide. You've had the answers all along. You just needed to trust yourself enough to listen. The reason so many people feel lost is not because they lack direction. It's because they've stopped trusting their own compass. They outsource their confidence to opinions, trends, and fears. But when you return to your inner knowing, everything simplifies. You no longer need to rush. You no longer need to prove. You no longer need to chase. Because when you trust yourself, life starts to flow again. Every choice becomes an act of alignment. Every action becomes a reflection of who you truly are. And the beautiful thing is, the more you trust yourself, the more the universe seems to trust you too. Doors open, people show up, opportunities appear. Because self-trust radiates certainty, and certainty attracts clarity. The world responds to the energy you give it. When you're uncertain, it mirrors confusion. When you're sure, it mirrors confidence. And that's the secret. Your life moves at the speed of your self-trust. The stronger it gets, the smoother your journey becomes. So from this moment forward, make a decision. Stop breaking promises to yourself. You've proven your loyalty to everyone else. Now prove it to you. Show yourself that your word means something. Show yourself that you are capable, consistent, and worthy of your own trust. Because when you do, your confidence becomes unbreakable, and no rejection, no failure, no doubt can shake it. That's when life starts to shift. Not because everything becomes perfect, but because you do. You stop fighting against yourself. You stop betraying your own intuition. You stop running from your potential. And suddenly, life begins to align in ways that feel almost effortless. Because trusting yourself isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of true freedom. As we move into the next chapter, we'll explore how to turn that trust into fearless action. How to live boldly, without waiting for the perfect moment, and how to move forward, even when uncertainty remains. Because once you trust yourself, the next step is to act on that trust, and that's where transformation truly begins. Chapter 9. Acting without fear. There's a moment right before every great leap, a pause, that single breath where your heart races, your mind hesitates, and fear whispers, "What if you fall?" It's the fragile space between the life you know and the one you're meant to live. Most people never move beyond that pause. They freeze, not because they lack potential, but because fear convinces them that safety equals survival. But the truth is, staying still is often the most dangerous thing you can do. Because while comfort protects you, it also prevents you. In that quiet hesitation, you are given a choice: to remain the same, or to trust yourself enough to act, even when your hands shake. Fear doesn't mean stop. It simply means you're standing at the edge of something that matters. Acting without fear doesn't mean you don't feel afraid. It means you move anyway. It means you look fear in the eyes, acknowledge its presence, and say, "You can come with me, but you don't get to drive." Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the mastery of movement, despite it. Think about it. Every bold decision that changed your life began with uncertainty. You didn't know if it would work. You didn't know if you'd be good enough. But something inside you whispered, do it anyway. That's the voice you must learn to trust, the one that's quiet but powerful, afraid but ready. Fear thrives in delay. The longer you wait, the louder it becomes. It feeds on hesitation, it multiplies in overthinking, and it steals the very energy you need to move forward. But the moment you take the first step, the moment you act, fear begins to shrink, because action is the antidote to anxiety. You can't think your way out of fear, you can only move through it. Life rewards movement. The universe responds not to intention alone, but to motion, to the signal that says, I'm ready. And here's something few realize. Courage is built through evidence, not emotion. You don't wake up fearless. You become fearless by doing the thing that scares you and surviving it. By acting, failing, learning, and realizing you were always stronger than the fear suggested. Fear will always disguise itself as logic. It will whisper reasons that sound practical. It's not the right time. You need more experience. Wait until you're sure. But underneath all those excuses is one simple truth. Fear doesn't want you to grow. So how do you act without fear controlling you? You simplify the step. Don't aim to leap the mountain. Just take the next visible step. The one that's in front of you. The one that's small enough to do today. Because progress doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from consistent movement, moment by moment. Once you start walking, momentum takes over. Action generates clarity. And suddenly, what once looked impossible begins to unfold naturally. Fear loses power when faced with proof. And every action you take is proof that you are capable, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're unsure. Remember this, hesitation builds doubt, but execution builds faith. The more you act, the more your confidence grows, and soon fear becomes familiar, no longer a monster, but a signal that you're expanding beyond what you've known. The mind loves what's predictable. It craves familiarity, even when that familiarity limits you. That's why stepping into the unknown feels like resistance. Your brain is trying to protect you from the unfamiliar. But growth always begins where comfort ends. Every great creator, every leader, every visionary, they all felt fear, but they made one critical decision, to act while afraid, and that decision changed everything. You have that same power within you. Fear doesn't mean you're weak, it means you care. It means you're alive enough to feel the weight of what matters. But don't let that weight anchor you. Let it remind you that something greater is calling. Acting without fear is a muscle, one that strengthens each time you push through resistance. The first time you speak up, your voice shakes. The second time it steadies. The third time it carries conviction. That's growth, invisible at first, unstoppable over time. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You just need to begin. Every person who built something meaningful, a dream, a career, a new life, started with uncertainty. They didn't wait for clarity. They created clarity through movement, because fear fades faster in motion than in meditation. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is take a practical step, send the message, apply for the job, create the project, end what drains you, start what excites you. Whatever it is, do it now, not when fear disappears, but precisely because it's still there. Action is how you prove to yourself that fear no longer controls your direction. And something powerful happens when you start moving despite fear. You awaken your inner strength. You begin to feel alive again. You realize that fear was never a wall, just a fog, one that clears the moment you step into it. Fear will always try to bargain with you. It will say, what if you fail? But your answer must be, what if I never try? because regret echoes longer than failure. Failure teaches, regret haunts. You can recover from mistakes, you can rise after rejection, but you can't reclaim the time you spend paralyzed by what-ifs. Acting without fear is an act of faith, faith in your ability to adapt, to learn, to rise no matter the outcome. And once you begin living this way, you'll notice something extraordinary. Fear stops shrinking your world. You start saying yes to new experiences. You start exploring paths you once avoided. You begin to trust that even if you don't know where the road leads, you'll build the bridge as you walk. And that's the kind of power that transforms a life. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward while it walks beside you. So take the step. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for perfect. Don't wait for fear to leave, because the most courageous people in the world didn't wait. They moved, they acted, and they grew into the version of themselves that fear tried to silence. Act now, not recklessly, but because faith is the language of action. And when you move with faith, fear becomes irrelevant. In the next chapter, we'll explore the art of persistence, how to keep moving when the excitement fades, when obstacles appear, and when the journey tests your strength. Because acting without fear starts the path, but persistence is what carries you to the finish line. Chapter 10. The Mastery of Peace. There is a quiet power in stillness, a strength that doesn't need to shout, a confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. It is the kind of power that comes from the mastery of your own inner world, and it begins with one simple yet profound choice: to no longer react to every stimulus that comes your way. Imagine a storm raging outside. Wind howls, rain lashes, lightning splits the sky. Now imagine standing in the center of it, completely calm, untouched by the chaos around you. This is not fantasy. This is the state of mind you can cultivate when you control your reactions, rather than letting them control you. Throughout this journey, we have explored awareness, detachment, trust, and courage. We have uncovered the tools to act without fear and to build the unshakable foundation of self-trust. And now, all of these lessons converge in one ultimate truth. Peace is the byproduct of mastery over your emotions. Peace is not the absence of challenges. It is not a life free from conflict, criticism, or pain. Peace is the conscious decision to remain centered, clear, and composed, regardless of what life throws at you. You might ask yourself, how is this possible? The answer lies in understanding the simple, yet often overlooked principle: nothing external can disturb you unless you allow it to. Every argument you've had, every insult you've received, every moment of frustration or anger, it all only had the power you gave it. And the moment you recognize this, you reclaim control. You realize that the only thing truly within your reach and your responsibility is your own mind. This is not denial. This is not suppression. It's awareness and choice. It's observing the initial spark of emotion, feeling it fully, and then deciding how or if you will respond. And in that space between stimulus and reaction, freedom exists. Consider the metaphor of fire. An uncontrolled fire destroys everything in its path, but a fire harnessed, contained within a hearth, provides warmth, light, and comfort. Your emotions are like that fire. Uncontrolled, they burn you and those around you. Controlled, they empower you and guide your actions with clarity and purpose. The mastery of peace requires practice. It requires pausing, breathing, and observing your internal reactions before they become external chaos. It requires the discipline to say, I will not give my power away to anger, frustration, or fear, and it requires the courage to remain calm when others cannot. You may have noticed in life that some people seem untouchable, serene, composed even in the most turbulent circumstances. This is not luck. This is skill. They have learned the secret that true control comes not from controlling the world around them, but from controlling the world within. When you stop reacting impulsively, life begins to change. Decisions become clearer, relationships deepen, stress diminishes. You begin to see situations for what they are, not what your fear or anger makes them seem. You respond rather than react. You influence rather than argue. You guide rather than resist. And the beauty of this mastery is that it spreads beyond you. Your calm becomes contagious. Your clarity inspires. Your peace invites others to follow. You no longer add fuel to unnecessary conflict. You become the eye of the storm, steady, present, and unwavering. Let's reflect for a moment. Think about every situation in your life where reaction led to regret. Now imagine approaching that same situation with awareness, choice, and calm. The outcome may not always be perfect, but your inner state will remain intact. And that, my listener, is true victory. Mastering peace also means releasing attachment. Attachment to outcomes, to control, to the validation of others. These are the chains that bind your mind to turmoil. The moment you loosen these chains, you allow space for serenity to enter. You realize that your happiness, your calm, and your sense of self-worth are not dependent on anyone else. They live entirely within you. And in that realization, freedom blossoms. Every lesson we've explored, awareness, detachment, self-trust, courage, fearless action, persistence, converges here. They all point to one ultimate truth. You are not your emotions, you are the observer of your emotions. And as the observer, you hold the key to mastery. So how do you integrate this into life? Begin with simple daily practices. Pause before reacting. Observe your breath. Ask yourself, does this require my energy? Does this deserve my attention? Practice gratitude in moments of irritation. Choose patience when provoked. See me when words add value, not when they are driven by impulse. Over time, these small decisions accumulate. They build a resilience that cannot be shaken. They cultivate a calm that becomes your default state. And eventually you no longer need to fight for peace. It becomes your natural environment. This is the ultimate power of not reacting. It's the quiet, unwavering strength that shapes your character, protects your energy, and transforms every interaction into an opportunity for clarity rather than chaos. And now, as we close this journey together, I want you to carry this truth with you. Control over your emotions is the greatest freedom you will ever experience. It is the gateway to confidence, the foundation of resilience, and the heart of authentic happiness. The path we have walked together was not about eliminating feelings, avoiding challenges, or escaping the world. It was about returning to yourself, about reclaiming your energy, your mind, and your peace, about standing unshaken, no matter the storm outside, because the storm inside has been mastered. And as you step forward into life, remember this: you cannot control everything, but you can control yourself. You cannot prevent every challenge, but you can preserve your peace. You cannot dictate the actions of others, but you can dictate your response. Mastery is not a destination, it is a practice. It is a commitment to remain conscious, present, and unwavering in the face of life's trial. And with each conscious choice, each measured response, each pause before reaction, you strengthen the unshakable foundation of your inner world. Carry this with you, live it, breathe it, and know that peace is not just an idea, it is your birthright. The power of not reacting is the power to live fully, freely, and fearlessly. It is the art of reclaiming yourself, the mastery of your mind, the triumph of your spirit. And now, with this understanding, the journey continues, not in these words, but in every choice you make, every response you give, and every moment life, as the calm, unshakable force you are always meant to be.